Okay. Hi, everybody. Hello. Welcome to the live stream. I'm just checking a few things real quick to make sure that we are up and running as we should be. Let me just check and make sure that our live stream is going. And it looks like it is. So, hello. Hello. You might notice that I have a friend behind me. And if you've been, I can't remember if it came up on last episode. It will be talked about in this upcoming episode, the one that's posting tomorrow. So I am in possession of a mannequin, obviously, and I'm working towards crafting a. Obviously, he looks like a werewolf, but something that's kind of chupacabra inspired for Halloween for our yard display this year, and it's very much inspired off of an artist that I learned of who's out in California, seniorscary.com. Go there, learn about him. I talk about him on tomorrow's show. So, yeah, this is my chupacabra in the early stages. Right now, his costume is being worked on, and so he doesn't have anything yet. But for the purposes of this live stream, I did not want him to be naked, so he's wearing my leather skirt just to have something on for the live stream. So, but he looks really good. I mean, I've had that werewolf head for years now, and I've never really gotten to get enough use out of it. And so now I finally have a mannequin, and I'm so excited because I'm going to do so much stuff with this mannequin. And I got him for cheap. So, very cool to know that you can just get mannequins for cheap and use them to your own purposes, your own evil purposes. Anyway, okay. So, first things first, I just want to say hello to you as you're joining. I also want to apologize to our Patreon folks. We had originally scheduled this cocktail hour for Friday afternoon, and I had so much going on top of trying to get this ready for you guys that it was not going to come together and be quality. So I thought let's regroup. Let's meet on Sunday instead. It worked out really well for the cocktail that I'm bringing to tonight's festivities. And so just thank you again. I mentioned it in the message to Patreon people, but thank you again for your patience and for your flexibility and just rolling with it as I've needed to sort of shift things to accommodate the schedule. The other thing I was working on was prepping the episode that's going to be available to tomorrow. So, on that note, quick note here that our newest episode will be available on podcast platforms starting tomorrow. But if you are part of our Patreon, you got the video episode last night. You get video episodes early. So if you're watching from some other source, not part of Patreon, please go join Patreon. It's free to join. Tell your people. We don't bug you there excessively. We do video episodes once a month. We do creepy cocktail hours once a month. Book club cocktail cards. If you're in our $3 tier, I want to let you guys know, those of you who are in our $3 tier, you're getting something extra this year. We are planning a Christmas gift that we're going to mail out to you that we hope you'll enjoy. We are planning that right now in those stages, and the creation, implementation of it will be getting underway soon. So if you're not part of that $3 tier, but you like gifts, then consider joining just as a much appreciated way of showing your support. And we are going to show you our appreciation with a thoughtfully curated gift. So that's it. Okay, let's get to the martini because I have ice sitting over here. So I had wanted to get you guys something that was sort of Victorian era inspired, maybe a beverage of the time or something along those nature, at least something inspired by that, right? And so resources, Patreon folks, you got your resources this morning. If you're watching from some other source, like say YouTube, you don't have those resources yet, but I will be posting them in either show notes or comments immediately after the live stream. So look for those there so that you can follow along with us and know what we're talking about. So I went to diffordsguide.com because I was specifically looking for something that would have been relevant to about the time period that people sort of discovered, hey, maybe arsenic is bad. So it was about like the mid to late 1800s. is when people started really getting clued into the realities of how dangerous arsenic was in certain products, and that it was potentially deadly to have in wallpaper. So was trying to find something from that era. And Jerry Thomas, and it's talked about in the article, Jerry Thomas in 1862 gives us a bartender's guide that's called, I don't have that in front of me, but I will pull that up in a second. Bartender's Guide, where he features a bunch of different cocktails, including something that's just very bare bones named the gin cocktail. That's what it's called. Okay. So let me see. I am going to be screen sharing like I did on the last cocktail hour, because I had fun with that. I don't know that y'all did, but I had a good time with it. And I don't do things if I don't find them fun. So, by the way, can I show you this real quick? So I wore it for this live stream, and then the microphone's blocking it. But like, I'm gonna do the beauty. You see that? That's my I forget what these are called. There's a name for these particular pendants, but this was my aunt's, and I got it. It was passed down to me when she passed. So I thought that's cool. I'll wear this for the live stream. And look, it's like a little mirror. Isn't that neat? So okay. Anyway, yeah. Thought that would be appropriate. And I'm also wearing my bug earrings, my insect earrings, my beetle earrings. So, yes, the name of the book is How to Mix Drinks, or The Bon Vivant's Companion. And so he features something called a gin cocktail. And so that recipe, very bare bones, it's 2 to 3 dashes of gum syrup, 1 to 2 dashes of Orinoco bitters. I think it's Orinoco bitters, 2 dashes of absinthe, and then gin. And you fill with fine ice. You stir well, you squeeze some lemon peel in there, and you serve. And it doesn't say anything about straining, so I'm guessing you're serving this in the glass with ice. That's super bare bones sounding, and I didn't necessarily want to go that route, although I would. Primarily, what was my hesitation there? Well, I didn't have the right bitters for one, but I was kind of I remembered that Earl Grey martinis are super fun. I like them. They're a good, what I classify as like a brunch beverage. So since we're doing this at kind of the high tea time period, I thought, well, that'll be fun too. So let's go with that and save this for another day, another time when I'm boring you with Victorian era um, trivia. So the cocktail that we ultimately went with is from liqueur.com, and it's the Earl Grey. I'm not sharing that. I could try to share it with you. Maybe I can try to share the screen with you. Let me just see. Let's test that out, shall we? Share screen. Earl Grey. Okay. Are you seeing it? Okay. So you might be seeing the recipe before you. Let me show you the picture real quick. Let me scroll up. Look at that beautiful picture. So this drink features an egg white, but we're not going to be doing that today because if you are, what is obvious is that I'm in my office. I'm not in the kitchen. If I were in the kitchen, I would be more willing to attempt it, but I'm not going to attempt it when it's just me in my office. So recipe calls for 1.5 ounces of Earl Grey gin, 3/4 ounce lemon juice, freshly squeezed, which I did do, 1 ounce simple syrup, 1 egg white, and then you garnish with a sugar rim and a lemon twist. That's what I forgot. I forgot my lemon twist. Oh well, that's fine. So let me stop share. Okay, so I'm going to be doing 2 ounces of gin because typically when I make a beverage, I will do 2 ounces of whatever the spirit. Hold on, sorry, whatever the spirit is, um, unless for some specific reason it's not advisable to do that. So 2 ounces for me is what I'm going to do here. I'm not going to do a full ounce of simple syrup just because I think that's a bit much. I don't really like super sweet drinks. So I'm just going to do 1/2 ounce of simple syrup, but I'm going to keep the 3/4 ounce of lemon juice. I like totally blanked. So the other thing that recipe calls for is it calls for a tea infused, Earl Grey tea infused gin. And I did do that this morning. Basically, I just measured out the gin that I was going to be using, a little bit more than that actually for the infusion. And then I just threw a Earl Grey tea bag in there and I left it. I didn't heat up anything. It was room temperature. I left it sitting on the counter for a few hours, like 4 to 5 hours max. You could go longer, but I didn't want to go that long. And look, so that's the gin. That's the color it took. I have never done an infusion this way with tea. So I've done like a tea infused simple syrup, but this was the first time that I infused the spirit with the tea. And so I was real impressed with that. So into my shaker goes 2 ounces of my tea infused gin. And then I'm going to do the 3/4 ounce of lemon juice, freshly squeezed. Okay. And then my 1/2 ounce of simple syrup. So just a little 1/2 ounce just for that. And I don't want that dripping anywhere and getting all sticky. So, yeah. And that's it. Like there would be an egg white going in, and you would want to do the egg white and all of your dry ingredients, dry shake first for like 10 to 30 seconds and maybe like 20 seconds. And then you would uncap it, put in your ice, do a second shake. Okay. But we're not doing that. Not even going to attempt that here. That's a bad idea. I'm hesitant to do that on a live stream with you anyway, but I would be more willing to do it for you again if I was in my kitchen. Okay. So here comes my shake. If you are taking in anything, any beverage while you're watching, let me know. I always ask, just in case I'm not the only one enjoying a cocktail during cocktail hour, as you're supposed to. Going for that frosted rim, that frosted edge, outer edge. Okay, I think that's well incorporated. So what I'm attempting today, because again, I'm in my office, I didn't fill, I don't have a cocktail chilling in the freezer. I did attempt to get one chilling in my kid's lunchbox with ice packs. And that didn't really work. But, I tried. Good for me for trying. But yeah, I really, really like a chilled glass. It's somewhat cold, but it's not chilled. I should have done it. If I had maybe thought to do it earlier, I only did it like 30 minutes beforehand. I probably should have done it like a full hour beforehand. Oh, that's nice and dark. If I had the egg white, it would probably look a little bit more like the image on that liqueur.com website. But I didn't want to go there. And I don't have my lemon peel to garnish, but otherwise that would be really pretty. So that's my Earl Grey Martini. And cheers. Let's try it. Oh, that's tasty. That's really tasty. Like I said, I've done an Earl Grey Martini where I infuse the simple syrup, but because you're not using so much of the simple syrup, the Earl Grey Martinis that I've made in the past haven't been quite so tea forward. That you definitely pick up the Earl Grey tea flavor here, but in cocktail form, and it's cold and refreshing. It's really, really good. Yeah. Oh, that's a good brunch drink. Yeah, that's a really good brunch drink. Keep that in mind. Next time you go to brunch or invite your ladies over for brunch, whip that up. Okay, so that's out of the way. Drinks made, delicious. So let's get to the topic at hand. We're bringing together my love of Victorian era design aesthetic and poison. Hold on, no. So poison also. So I love Victorian things, and then there's also poison. Making that clear, divider there. But Valerie doesn't like poison. I'm not saying I like poison. Okay, anyway, you follow me. Okay, so again, in your resources, you guys received, I found some really cool articles from links like Smithsonian Magazine. There's this awesome article I'm going to share with you guys. I'm going to screen share it with you guys from St. Louis Art Museum. St. Louis. And a Vogue.com article, and then just a little information about a book that's going to come up a lot in our chat today. It's called Bitten by Witch Fever, and it's by Lucinda Huxley, I believe is the name. Lucinda Huxley. Yes. And so let me just read a little bit about, like what we learned from our reading of the Atlantic. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. So Patreon folks, late in the game, I sent you the email with all the resources, and then I found this really great article, which was like an interview with Lucinda Huxley from The Atlantic. And so I tacked that on in the comments on Patreon. I don't know if you saw it or not, but it's extra resource for you guys. So what I'm going to be talking about here in just a second is culmination of Smithsonian and Atlantic stuff. Okay. So bold wallpaper has always been adored by people at some point in time, right? And it's never truly gone out of style. And I'm happy for that because I personally love a bold, dramatic wallpaper. In our dining room, is painted black because me. But one panel of the wall has a really light cream colored elegant wallpaper. It's not my design. It was a pick from the previous owners of this house, and it works fine. And we've left it because honestly, it adds a little bit of light to the otherwise black dining room. But if I ever find a truly beautiful, dark, dramatic mural style wallpaper, and if I can find somebody to help me install wallpaper, I would go for that in a heartbeat because like Victorian aesthetic, dark academia aesthetic, I so vibe with that. Right now anyway. There was a time when I vibed with like light walls and just very neutral stuff, but not now. Not me in my 40s. So anyway, okay. So let me screen share. Not yet, but I will be screen sharing. Like I said, I will be screen sharing throughout just because what we're discussing is basically art for your walls. And there's some beautiful prints in some of these links that I shared with you guys. So I want you to be able to see them. If you're watching on YouTube, I want you to be able to see them. So, okay. Lucinda Huxley's book, Bitten by Witch Fever, will come up in our chat today a lot. Like I said, if it's not on your buy list, I think we should all buy this book. It looks great. And I could have sworn when I was doing research that I came across another book that really looked like it would be a great conversation starter coffee table book. And I cannot for the life of me find it now or even like maybe I was hallucinating, but I could have sworn I found it. So if you guys know of any other books on this topic, please share them with us because I'm putting them on my Christmas list. I want this book and then I want whatever book I imagined in my head that I thought existed and maybe it doesn't. So let me see. Oh, my pencil's dull. So from this lovely article I dug up from the Smithsonian Magazine, which was dated back in 2017, Victorians were obsessed with vividly colored wallpaper, which is on trend still for that year, 2017, but also still, though arsenic poisoning is never in style. And Kat Eschner writes, Victorian wallpaper, much like many of this year's runway styles, was brightly colored and often full of floral designs. Those looks might strike you dead, but in the Victorian period, wallpaper could and did kill. And it was everywhere, she goes on to say. If you hop over to that Atlantic article, which is titled When Poison Was Everywhere, Hanaya Ray writes, slightly over a century ago, poison was a common part of everyday life. Arsenic, the notorious metalloid, was used in all sorts of products, primarily in the inks and dyes of beautifully printed wallpapers and clothing. Odorless and colorless, it went into food as food coloring, and it was used in beauty projects such as there was something called arsenic complexion wafers that promised women pure white skin until as late as like the 1920s. It was found in the fabric of baby carriages, plant fertilizers, medicines. It was even taken as a libido pill in Austria. I thought it said Australia, Austria. But vivid floral wallpapers caused particular controversy about what made something safe to have in your home. Let me take a sip of this delicious drink. It's really good. And if you like Earl Grey tea, if you don't, then you're not going to like this. I love black tea. I love Earl Grey tea. That's my go-to tea whenever I go for tea. I've never really am into like chamomile or those fruit teas or anything like that. It's just not my jam. If I'm going to drink tea, it's going to be black tea. Okay, so 'twas the color green that was the culprit, as I think many of us know by now. So Miss Huxley, author, explains that after Swedish chemist Carl Scheele, let's say Scheele, used copper arsenate to create a bright green, which I think is commonly known now as Scheele's green. It grew really popular with the pre-Raphaelite movement. Anyway, and with home decorators for everyone from the emerging middle class on upward. So copper arsenate, of course, contains the element arsenic. So Huxley also says that even before the popularity of these colors, even before that swept Britain, people were already sort of getting the beginnings of seeing the dangers associated with arsenic paints. But this was largely ignored by British manufacturers at the time. So it's like they kind of were seeing the signs, and we'll get to why they were seeing the signs. But I want to read you this specific bit from the Smithsonian piece. One prominent doctor named Thomas Orton nursed a family through a mysterious sickness that ultimately killed all four of their children. In desperation, one of the things he started to do was make notes about their home and the contents, because he was trying to figure out like what took down this family's children. He found nothing wrong with the water supply or the home's cleanliness, but one thing he worried about: the Turner's bedroom had green wallpaper, Eschner writes. For Orton, it brought to mind an unsettling theory that had been doing the rounds in certain medical circles for years, that wallpaper could kill. And this theory held that even though nobody was eating the paper, obviously, because people by that point did know that arsenic was deadly if eaten or ingested in some way, it being on the paper, it could cause people to get sick and die. So the literature, and again, this is stuff you're going to know if you're a reader. The literature of the period also touched on these theories. If you look at Perkins Gilman if you look at Charlotte Perkins Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper, our main character in that story is driven mad, and she believes it's the wallpaper in her room, the room that she's confined to, that is causing her illness. She says in that story, "It makes me think of all the yellow things I ever saw, not beautiful ones like buttercups, but old, foul, bad yellow things," she says. "But there is something else about that paper, the smell." Okay. So if you see that guy come to life, let me know, okay? Alert me, please. Okay, so Bitten by Witch Fever, that's the book, tells the story of the extensive use of arsenic in the 19th century, and it details all the things, all the products of the time that were made from substances that incorporated arsenic. So real quickly, let me pull up that link so that you can see. I don't know if it's going to let me. Let's just play. We're just playing, okay? Screen sharing. This one. Okay. So here we are. This is the book, Bitten by Witch Fever, Wallpaper and Arsenic in the 19th Century Home by Lucinda Huxley. The shocking story of a deadly trend in Victorian wallpaper design, illustrated by beautiful and previously unseen arsenic-riddled designs from the British National Archives. So guys, yes, this is such a gorgeous wallpaper collection here. I wish I could make this bigger. Can I? Yes, I can. Yeah, hold on. Let me see if I can make this move so I can. Now, what's happening? Okay, that's fine. Okay, so gorgeous designs. Beautiful, beautiful. It's a perfect coffee table book. Somebody, if you know any of my family members, tell them I want this book for Christmas. Look at how great. And so it just details all of the different products that you would have found arsenic in at the time. So this is just an excellent book. Look at that. Oh, so gorgeous. And what's so nice to see is how, like I said, wallpaper is still very popular, and it's definitely what has been having its moment in the years of late for like a while now. And I think it's here to stay, is dramatic, bold designs like this, muralesque designs and big prints. Okay, that's it. That's it for what it's going to let me share on that. Let's stop share. Okay. So yeah, I love those designs, and I love that we're seeing recreations of those without the arsenic. So the Atlantic piece is a really great interview, like I said, with Lucinda Huxley. And when asked, when did people start to figure out this was lethally dangerous, she says around the 1860s, the cases of arsenic poisoning started getting to the newspapers. And one wallpaper manufacturer debuted arsenic-free wallpaper, but no one really paid attention to that until more and more cases started appearing. So by the 1870s, William Morris, who produced a lot of wallpaper and, interior design stuff, William Morris started to produce arsenic-free wallpapers. At this point, though, Morris himself did not actually believe that the arsenic was the problem. He was just caving to public pressure and doing it because it had become so unpopular. So he thought because no one was ill in his house where he had arsenic, where he had wallpaper, that it must be something else that was causing the sickness. So he was like, well, nobody in my family, everyone in my family is fine, and I have my wallpaper all over my house. So he never really bought into it, but he did bow to public pressure and start producing arsenic-free designs. So basically, when we talk about how there were telltale signs that British manufacturers just weren't paying attention to for the longest amount of time, here's what those telltale signs were. Let me take a sip. I do this live stream when I'm in front of my office. I do this live stream in front of um, our front window, and we live like in a cul-de-sac. And so, like my friend just walked by, and I know her. She lives in the neighborhood. Anyway, so if I get distracted, it's because I'm like staring at people in the neighborhood. When we first moved into this house, my spouse does all of his work here at this desk, and so yeah, I think he's at this point trained his brain to get over it. But in the beginning, we were just very actively watching. When you're in a cul-de-sac, you're very actively watching what's going on in the cul-de-sac. So, because it's right in front of you. So it's okay. Telltale signs that manufacturers saw and ignored. Basically, what starts to happen is factory workers are starting to get sick. And Huxley says many died because they were working with green arsenic dye. They would become really unwell, especially when working with something called flock papers. These were papers with small fiber particles that stick to the surface. And so, what would happen is the workers would dye these tiny, tiny pieces of wool or cotton in green. And then while they were doing that, they would inhale them, and these would get stuck to their lungs. The manufacturing process created a lot of dust from the dye. The dust had arsenic in it, and the dust would stick to their eyes and to their skin. If you had like an open cut, if you're working in the factory and you have an open cut, a scratch on your hand or something, the arsenic could get directly into the bloodstream and poison them that way as well. So, just really, really bad scenarios to be in if you're a factory worker in the Victorian period. And no doubt a variety of reasons that aren't just about deadly wallpaper. It was just bad environment, unsafe environment. So, really tragic. Um, and now this is really key. She says this in the interview too, and I wanted to be sure to share it directly. She says, when the newspapers started to point out that this was happening, so telling these early signs, most people didn't care. And she says it's a bit like today. People will still buy a brand of chocolate, even if there's been a story on how the chocolate has been produced by slave labor. They buy coffee that was also produced by slave labor. They buy clothes, even though it was made by bonded labor. As long as people get what they want, most people don't think twice about it. If they were confronted with these things face on, of course, they wouldn't buy these products. At least hopefully, right? So, boo, boo. Okay, so hold on. Take a sip. Everyone take a sip. It's so good. I'm so happy with that. My first gin tea infusion. Who knew? And I know I said earlier that I'm not personally into when I drink tea, I'm not personally into any other kind of tea except like an Earl Grey tea. Um, Now that I've done this, for a spirit infusion, that I would do like a chamomile tea infusion or a jasmine tea. That I would start to play with herbs and florals and things like that because that might be fun to incorporate in a gin or a vodka. So now that I've done this, we've opened a whole can of worms. Okay, so we've done that. I want to take you guys through the Vogue piece because that also has a lot of really beautiful designs to share. So let me pull that up and then I will screen share. Um, and this is also like basically what I found was a lot of information on this author's book, Lucinda Huxley. So because it's like the most recent thing of the past, how old are we? What past like 10 years. Okay. So let me screen share again one more time. Screen share the shocking history of arsenic laced wallpaper. Again, this is the Lucinda Huxley book, but we might get some more pictures of how do I make this smaller? What do I do? What happens if I do this? Nope. Nope. That made it worse. That made it worse. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna stop share and we're gonna reshare and I'm gonna hope the problem goes away. Okay, let me just see if I can do. There we go. There we go. That'll have to do. That'll have to do. Okay. So scrolling down in this article, I just wanted to show you some of this beautiful wallpaper designs. This article says, so how exactly could a health hazard this serious, knowing what we know about arsenic, remain so prevalent? Well, because people love beautiful detail. Look at this beautiful detail. This is Jules de Fosse from Paris, 1879. So again, talking about the book, and talking about the creation of Scheele's Green. And we scroll down, look at this. And I mean, this particular design, you see replicas of this today in modern wallpaper, almost exactly. The swans are big in wallpaper these days. The resurgence of this is what I'm here for. And if I were to find something like this, I would absolutely incorporate it into our dining room. Something mural-esque. That's what I'm looking for. So this is Corbière. I'm saying that all wrong. Forgiveness. Sun and Brindle from London, 1879. So again, we're talking about William Morris, one of the skeptics who didn't believe, he wasn't willing to believe that arsenic in the wallpaper could be the problem, was William Morris. He was the arts and crafts design stalwart and champion of workers' rights and safety provisions. Yet he ignored that. Like, that's interesting because he ignored this basic thing. He designed some of the most iconic wallpapers of the era. And inherited his fortune from an arsenic mine in which he still held stock for a number of years. But by the 1870s, the Morris family's DWAN Great Consols mine was one of a few mines reportedly producing over half of the world's supply of arsenic. And while he ultimately divested his interest in the company, questions on his apparent hypocrisy and why he never actually visited the notoriously bad workplaces continue to linger. You know, when I read about mines, I'm reminded of Sylvia Moreno Garcia's, what was the name of that book, guys? Hold on. I'm looking away because I have it on my bookcase somewhere. Hold on. What is the name of that book? Mexican Gothic. Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I love Mexican Gothic. I thought it was great. Mines remind me of that. Look at this one. Look at that. It almost looks gold. This was yellow. William Cook, Leeds, UK, 1880. You know, that would be so nice. So with our black dining room, I could get something like this that has elements of yellow, and that would be my nod to the yellow wallpaper. I love that for me. Let's do it. Okay, let's see. Is there any more? No, I think that's it. I think that's it for that article. So let me go over here and stop share. I don't know what I did to this little thing, and I'm so mad that I messed it up because it was working. Okay, stop share. Okay, so now I want to show you and again, I'm going to screen share here in a second, but this is visuals of the St. Louis Museum piece. Basically what happened was somebody who follows them on Instagram or some social media, someone who follows them on social media asked a question about some antique wallpaper that they have housed in the museum that they have on display. Just asking if that has, this makes me so happy. I'm so glad I wore it and I wish you guys could see it, but it's here. Just know it's here. Asked if it has arsenic in it, if it's, arsenic laced wallpaper. And the museum was like, well, let's go on a journey and try to figure that out. So let me show you, because so that you can see what the wallpaper is that they have on display. Again, I think it incorporates birds. Pretty sure it incorporates swans, but don't hold me to that. So let me pull that up and then get ready to screen share again. Death on the Doorstep. Arsenic in Victorian Wallpaper. I love these dramatic titles. Maybe this is what I thought was a book, and it wasn't a book. Maybe I thought, because Death on the Doorstep, that's a great title for a book. But it's not a book. It's just an article. So this came out in 2020. And this is from the St. Louis Art Museum. One of the St. Louis Art Museum's social media followers asked whether the museum's sample of Walter Crane's 1889 wallpaper, the Peacock Garden — see, I knew it was a bird, not a swan, peacock — contains Scheele's green. If it's Scheele's green, would somebody let me know? And I apologize for mispronouncing it. This, like we know, in our Scheele's green, an arsenic-based pigment that was very prevalent in Victorian wallpaper. So the resulting research into the museum's example of Crane's work and arsenic-based pigments revealed interesting insights. Okay, so a little bit about Crane. Born in 1845 in Liverpool, he pursued a career as a designer and children's book illustrator. He created wallpaper designs for Jeffrey & Co., one of the leading wallpaper printers in England, starting in 1875. They utilized arsenic-based colors for their products in the early to mid-19th century. However, by the time of the Peacock Gardens printing in 1889, the general public knew of arsenic's dangers and sought safer alternatives. Unfortunately, the walls were not the only place arsenic lurked in Victorian homes. We already know this. So, interestingly enough, in 19th century England, people considered small doses of arsenic safe, which is wild to me. They used it for diverse products, from face powder to rat poison. Like when we talk about small doses of arsenic safe, like to be ingested or to be like applied to your face, obviously to be applied to your face, maybe not directly ingested, but they thought that they could use it. Like I know there were some soaps that had arsenic in them or elements of arsenic in them. So evidently people thought maybe you could put them on your skin and be okay. So let's see. This is the design. Look how beautiful that is. Maybe I want peacocks. So literature of the period, we already know that. The yellow wallpaper. We've already talked about William Morris. So yes, by the time that Crane designed the Peacock Garden, all the way in 1889, remember I said about 1860, mid 1800s, people were really starting to clue into the fact that this was bad news. So by the time the Peacock Garden gets produced in 1889, the British government had begun to regulate the use of arsenic in a variety of industries. Other manufacturers followed suit during the last decades of the 19th century until the presence of arsenic pigments in wallpaper became obsolete. Was Peacock Gardens green ink toxic? Documentary evidence suggests that it is unlikely. However, further analysis must be made in order to know for sure. So, at the time that this was published, which I think, let me scroll back up, 2020. At the time that this was published, the museum said that the panel of wallpaper that they have was currently encased in its own environment in Gallery 122. I don't know if it's still there 5 years later, but if it is, go see it. They say it's safe to see. In the future, however, when the panel will be taken off view as part of its regular rotation, they do hope to use X-ray fluorescence to answer this question. And who knows? By now they may have. Been able to determine that. Look, okay, look at this. Can you see? Can you see how beautiful that is? I want that in my dining room. Okay, I'm immediately after we get done here, I'm shopping wallpaper for our dining room. The thing is like it would make the dining rooms darker, and I feel like I've capped my family out on how far they're willing to let me go moody with wall colors in our house, because I have like our living room. Let me stop share. Our living room is painted a deep green. Our the powder room right off of this office, right outside this office, painted what I like to call a green expectations green. And when I say not great expectations, sorry, green, great expectations green. And by that I mean if you go, I'm talking about Great Expectations, Ethan Hawke, Gwyneth Paltrow, movie of the 90s. There's green incorporated all over that movie deliberately, right? As a nod to Great Expectations. And so like when I deliberately sought out a green that I wanted for that powder room that embodies that to me. And so green, when we moved into this house, green was the color that this house was giving me. And so I was just like, okay, we're going to go with shades of green. And like this is, it's kind of like a gray, but also like a dark green, like a dark grayish green. But yeah, the dining room, I knew I wanted black. I knew I wanted to incorporate black. In our last house, we painted one wall black in our house in the parlor area, and it was dramatic, and I loved it. And I was just like, we're doing it again. We're doing it somewhere. And our dining room is easily the most dramatic room in our house because, again, not picked by me, picked by the previous owners, but they have some dramatic they're lovely, dramatic chandeliers in that dining room. Not necessarily what I would go with, not necessarily the design aesthetic that my spouse and I were rocking prior to moving to this house. They've grown on me since then. We've been in this house a number of years now. And so I thought, okay, well, we'll lean into that. We'll keep that. And we're going to make this room dramatic to fit it. And so when you go dramatic in one room, you have to go dramatic in all the rooms. But yeah, when we brought in people, because we had to do so much painting in this house, and so we hired people to do that for us because we knew that would just make the process go easier and faster. And the guy, I picked out all my colors, and the guy looked at me and he's like, "You like dark colors?" I was like, "I do, I really do." So yeah, I'm glad that I got to get what I want out of that and that I wasn't persuaded to go with light. There's nothing wrong with light colors. In our previous home, we had light walls because we had a lot of art on the walls. And if you have a lot of art on your walls, I think it is so important that you have a blank canvas that makes the art pop, right? And lately I have been feeling that. I have been missing that because I love art and I love putting art on the walls. Um but when we moved into this house, which it is larger than our last house, um, we didn't have enough to go on the walls. And I was very cognizant of that. So I was just like, well, in absence of art, what can you do to make it feel less like you live in an institution with white walls everywhere? Throw some color on the walls. Or had we had the money and resources to do this, throw some wallpaper on the walls. So I think because like we've discussed, wallpaper is in itself, it is art that you are putting on the wall. And so I think that's a beautiful idea. And I hope wallpaper never goes out of style. I hope we always have it. I love if I can find for my Patreon peeps, if I can find in the house that Ronnie and I grew up in the house. It's not the house she was born. Like she didn't grow up in that house, but it's the house that I grew up in a small town in Texas where we're from. Our front entry, our foyer had the most retro 80s, 70s wallpaper ever. Like, there was gold in it. I've talked about that wallpaper with my family over the years. I freaking love that wallpaper. I can't remember during the pandemic when everything was shut down and we couldn't go anywhere. And so all you're doing is just sitting around your house or your apartment, just staring at your walls and being like, well, I'm going to start a home improvement project because I got nothing else to do. During that time period, I was just like thinking about that wallpaper and I was like, can I paint a version of that wallpaper on my walls? And would my spouse let me do that? And I think, because you get so um, cabin crazy. Is that what is that the phrase? Cabin crazy? You get so cabin crazy, if that's the phrase, that I think he was willing to let me try. Because what do we care? Like let's just paint it, and if we hate it, we paint over it. And I almost did, but I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't. I don't like. There are people who paint wallpaper designs on their walls and they do a beautiful job of it. I'm not one of those people. I have tried to do stuff on walls. I don't have the gift. So I don't know that I would try to paint wallpaper again. Maybe. But yeah, I would love if I could find. I'll find the picture and I'll share it with you guys. There's a picture of me dressed up, not even for Halloween. It was just my sisters used to dress. I was a little girl and I was much younger than them, and so they just used to treat me like a little doll and dress me up sometimes. So it wasn't even Halloween. They were just dressing me up, and I stood in the foyer of our house and they took a photo, and so that's the photo that I reference anytime I want to go and look at that wallpaper again. But it was a freaking great wallpaper. Um, in a great house. So mid-century modern architecture. I love mid-century modern architecture. So everything about that house, if I could go back to it, it was great. Anyway, my friends, now I'm rambling, but I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found this informative. We collectively are gonna go by the name of the book. What is it again? What did I say it was? The name of the book, guys, is Bitten by Witch Fever. And by the way, I didn't say this. I didn't cover this in the story, in my story today, but it's a nod, Lucinda Huxley. The title of her book is a nod to William Morris because, as I said, William Morris um, produced some of the most iconic designs of the time in terms of wallpaper. And up until the very end, never really like, even though he stopped producing wallpapers that had arsenic in it, he was never really willing to admit that that might have been true, that arsenic in wallpaper was in fact deadly and dangerous. And so what he wrote or said, either wrote or said to a friend on the matter, was something to the effect of, um, the doctors of the time were bitten by it, like consumed by they caught the bug essentially of believing that this was true, the same way that people were bitten by witch fever. So a nod to that, to what he said. Bitten by Witch Fever is the name of the book by Lucinda Huxley. And I think we should all buy it, and then we should all talk to each other about it. And that's it. That's all I've got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found this fun. I love design and I love art. And wallpaper is art. So I love the Victorian period. I don't love poison, but it is fun to talk about. It's fun to talk about it. So, and I love this cocktail. This was a win. This was a hit. So glad I did it. Because I almost didn't. I was almost gonna like just do my normal um tea infused simple syrup, but this is so much more tea flavored and I like it. So I hope you enjoyed this. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday evening or morning, wherever. And we will catch you next time. Be sure to tune in tomorrow to our latest podcast episode. We are going to be discussing The Day of the Lord, which is a Spanish film available on Netflix. If you haven't watched it yet, you still have time. You can watch it tonight, and then you can listen to our episode tomorrow. And if you're not part of our Patreon, please do come join us. Okay, free to join. We give you lots of good stuff, and you can be part of our of planning fun stuff out as we go forward and continue to grow. So thank you so much, guys. Love you. Thanks for the support, and we'll see you later. Bye.